Okay, I guess I'm live. The mic is picking up. Alright, I see the thing. Alright. I take a little time this morning and warm up with some LivE ink. Gonna start like I usually do with my brush. The Secure Taka Fountain Brush number 8, I think. It's either 8 or 7, I forget which. I own both. One is more of a kind of a felt tip marker. This one's got an actual bristle brush. Pencils today by his sketch by Ed Bennis. I'm not sure if that's how you actually pronounce his name or not. He is from Brazil, if I'm not mistaken. I inked him years ago when I inked him on the Hero's Return stuff. Years and years and years ago, but I was with Wildstorm. Everybody asks me, how do you learn the brush? How do you learn the brush? How do you learn to be delicate with it? And I always tell them the trick is to learn your thinnest line. And then once you can get the tool to give you that thin line over and over again, you just sit and play with it. You sit and draw with the thinnest line. And after some time doing that, you can generally get it to do everything for you that a quill might do. And more, because it'll dry faster. For one thing, you'll be able to fill in areas easier. One of the hardest things about inking is just keeping your hand out of it. Can you keep your hand out of the wet ink and not ruin what you've already put down? And sometimes with a quill, that could be really tough to do. Because it'll take that ink so long to dry. So yeah, generally, as far as people looking for how-to advice, what I do is I come in first and do all the stuff that I can do with the brush first. The stuff that lends itself to that. Outside line weights, things of that nature. I'll do all that with a brush first, just because it gives me a wide range of line weights that I can do with it. And then if I don't fill in the blacks, I'll at least block them off. Here I'm blocking off and filling at the same time. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my... Here, hang on just a second. This will probably help. I don't usually do that anymore. I turn the brim of my hat around so it's facing behind me like I used to in my 20s. Just undignified for a man over 50 to be wearing his hat backwards, unless he's trying to keep it out of the camera shot. Then I respect it. But yeah, generally what I come in and do first, I try to think about the structure of the muscles, laying down the line weights. Because if you have the structure of the thing first, if some of the details and stuff, some of the rendering slips by, it's not such a big deal because you have the structure nailed down. I get the feeling that Ed did this at 8.5 by 11 as I'm working here. Just because some of the things that are shadowed in, I think if he'd had more room, he would have done more rendering and such. But I think he was working the same size. And in pencil, it's just hard to nail down hard detail lines like that and not have them smudge. There's a little bitty hair sticking out of there. Let's see if I can grab it. Maybe. I don't know. I'll find out. Twirl the brush around a little bit. Now watch, I probably just ruined it. Nope. Doesn't seem ruined. Hey, Dan Goodwin, how are you doing, man? Sorry, I'm not looking up at the chat too much. Focusing in on what I am doing here. Dan's probably been sitting there going, "Jeez, man, I said hi 10 minutes ago. Just got doing, jeez." Concentrating on my warm up here, man. Sorry about that. Nothing personal. This guy here, right on. At some point, I guess I'll probably pick up a pen. But for now, I'm still blocking in blacks. A little bit of detail stuff, but not a lot. Mainly just establishing line weights. It's like the camera's kind of fuzzy as hell from where you guys are sitting. Get you guys a better look at what I'm at. Okay. I think before I get myself into too much trouble here, before I got some pens. Wind up trying to show off too much and screw it up. have my French curve. Oh well. No, I'm kidding. You can't do that. Well, I don't know. Maybe you can, but I can't do that. It's not gonna work out if I can't find that damn thing. Where is it? I guess I'm doing the claws later, because I don't know where the hell I said it. Okay. Oh well. All right. I'll do the claws later. A lot to do before we get there. There's my dog. Hi, Marvin. Got my slicky pen. Sorry, I had to mute the microphone because I just belched like an enormous pig. And I spared you. I spared you all. Mm. Yeah, I got turned on to these. It's a slicky. Now I got a pencil pillow around it, but let me get up to where you can see. Oh, it's gonna be too much light. Slicky. SLICCI. It's a 0.25 millimeter. It gives a really, really teeny tiny line. I saw Will Sportasio was using one, and I'm like, oh, that looks great. So I had to get one and try it. Okay, I'm gonna have to track down the damn French curve, son of a bitch. I'm sorry, technical difficulties and all that good stuff, but I gotta have that damn curve for a couple of these things. Where the hell did I set it? There we go. There we go. That'll work. Oh, is that what he's got going on? He's got the bone claws going on. Maybe that's what he's doing. I don't know. It's the kind of stuff I like digital for. Okay. Not awesome, but not horrible either. It'll do. Quit using the hard tip pen and get out the soft tip one to do some of the crap. Oops. I get to touch that up now. Anybody out there hunting for art supplies to use? I think these Tombo Food Nosakis are excellent. Just a nice overall marker pen. Three people watching now. How long have I been doing this? Oh wow, I've been on almost an hour already. Okay. Taking a little longer than I thought it would. That's okay though. a minute. Take a look and see some of the stuff I'm doing there on the knee. Yeah. So we're getting there. If I'm going to ink digitally, do I still warm up traditionally? No, it really doesn't matter one way or the other. Um, these days, I've been trying to get a little more on paper because it seems like people respond to that a little better on YouTube, or at least that's my perception of it. I do want to get back to doing more traditional paperwork because it's just, well, for one thing, it's nice to have something to sell. You know, I can sell you a print of something I did digitally, or I can sell you a comic that I did digitally. But as far as like an original piece to hang on your wall with actual ink on it and stuff, you know, I got to do ink and stuff. So, and I don't mind that. It's nice to see, like oh look, I spent all that time working digitally, and I can still do it with a pen too. So, and I learned things by working digitally that I'm not sure I would have figured out any other way. For one thing, there's a fearlessness that comes with being able to lay down a line and know that there's not going to be any problems correcting it. If you screw up, you can erase it cleanly. There's no bleed proof white kind of stuff. Hey Mel, how you doing, man? Good to see you. I guess to warm up, this would be a good warm up for it because you notice I started and I did quite a bit with the brush, which is usually more challenging for me, depending on what you're doing. And you're trying to, like I kind of show off, like, oh, okay, let's see if I can get into all the tight nooks and crannies and do stuff that I really shouldn't be doing with a brush and really kind of test the limits and see where I'm at today with it. These tombos are great because you don't really have to think about it too much. You get a little bit of line weight variation if you lay the sucker on its side, but if you have it up on its tip, it does respond a little bit to pressure control, but not a lot. Usually, if you want a nice hunky line out of it, you're going to have to lay it on its side for that stroke. Oh, pardon me. Okay, sorry about that. Do I prefer tighter pencils from artist finished pencils or looser pencils to ink over and be more myself when inking? I you know, I it's hard to say. Um, are sometimes when tight pencils become too intimidating, depending upon the artist. Um, for instance, yeah, I've been told that people like what I did, including J. Scott Campbell and including Jim Lee, that they like what I did on their pencils. Uh, didn't particularly enjoy either process because their pencils are so tight, so precise. And knowing both of those gentlemen, uh, there is not a line that goes down on the page that is not down on that page just the way they want it. To the point that even with excellent inkers that those guys both get consistently, I've seen many, many, many times where the pencils show up on the desks of some of these people and the faces are already inked, or the eyes in particular, those guys get really super duper picky. So you really got to be on your A game when you're inking those dudes because there's no room for mistakes. There is no wiggle room, and that I don't really enjoy. Um, I could see doing some finishes over Jim Lee or over Campbell, but as far as like straight inking, that's really a job. Really, it's like, gee, it's a good thing you're getting paid because you're not enjoying this. You know, not really. And jobs like that are nice to see if you still have the technical chops. You know, um, sometimes I like some wiggle room too. It just depends. People will ask me questions too, like, "Why do you have a rubber band around that pen?" Well, it helps hold the finger position that I want with this pen, and reminds me to kind of use it on its side. Food no sake soft that I'm using around right now, and I'm really beating it up. I guess overall, at the end of my career, if I had to pick one way or the other, I prefer pencils where I have a little room to play. Especially if it's a style that I feel like that I understand well enough that I don't feel like I have to have it all spelled out for me. Like, okay, I can see where you're going. I can get you the rest of the way there. You don't have to spell it all out for me. I see where we're headed. And then there's sometimes too, man, where especially at this stage of my career, where they're not beating down my doors anyway, so I really kind of do what I want to do on it because if they're not going to play one way or the other, you may as well have some fun if you're going to continue to do it. So I mean, there's certain things that it really doesn't matter. If J. Scott Campbell or Jim Lee brought me a drawing of Iron Man, for instance, and asked me to ink it, in fact, anybody's drawing of Iron Man. I grew up cutting my teeth looking at John Romita Jr. and Bob Layton's Iron Man, and I'm going to try and do that. Doesn't matter what you put down, I'm going to try and turn it into that. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. You want me on Iron Man, that's what I'm going to do. So, there are some things like that where just and I very much do that with Rob too. You can ask him, like, Matt, he really didn't have the glove that Fisto was using real well defined until I came in and went, oh, that's Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet. Cool. I'll just take it like that. And once I did that, he was like, that's the look. That's what that looks like now. I'm like, well, I ripped it off. But don't tell Marvel. It doesn't look enough like it. Screw you, Marvel. Da, da, da. I might have to stop this and finish up the rest some other time. Is this still an Eon board? I don't know. I think so. I think this one is Eon. I don't know. I had a few of these printed out, and I don't think, maybe not. This might just be cardstock. So, most of the tools that I'm using these days will put up with just about anything as far as board goes. Yeah, I've had a few of these printed up that for a minute now that I've been kind of looking at and wanting to do a demo on. But I'm trying to get Rob's book finished up too. But now that I'm inches away, literally, from finishing that book, I thought, well, I'll do an actual ink demo today. Okay, let's give you guys a look and see where we're at here. Let's see. Oh, I like these. This is the pit pen, Faber-Castell's pit pen, and this is the brush tip. And I like this for just for a quick blocking in of blacks and stuff. Like anybody that enjoys like the feel of a Sharpie, but you need something with archival ink in it, this is what you're looking for. Little more sensitive than a Sharpie, not much. But it lets you block in stuff like that pretty quick. All right. the old-fashioned way. Nah. Yeah. Yeah, I prefer a cleaner look for that. It's just going to work better. Okay. Everybody wonders how you do this kind of stuff. Like, okay, you get a scramble of lines going here. You notice that one set is coming this way. And that's what we're going to focus in on first. And we're going to make those lines pretty heavy. Heavier than that, in fact. Let's see. Yeah. And here's, we're going to break out that pit pin again. Now, I do try to make sure that these are fairly straight and even. If I screw something up, though, it's not the end of the world. These are the thickest lines I'm going to do. Everything else is going to be done with different pens to come in and really cross-hatch the shit out of this. But I do want to make sure that they stay all the same direction. It's okay if they run into each other a little bit, because that's where it's going to really start to fade into black anyway. And then from there, we're going to come in with thinner pens. Again, it doesn't really matter if it's perfect. We want to do in several layers of lines here. Okay, you'll notice as I'm coming up here, I'm going to do this next set of lines. I'm going to make sure that it cross hatches these in such a way that it's at a 45-degree angle. As long as you keep a set of lines 45 degrees on the last set of lines that you did, it's always going to look cool. It's always going to work against it. And as you start to get a lot of lines in here, you can loosen up a little bit. Start to get a little scribbly. There's some small lines going on in there with your long lines. See, I'm going to do a set like that. And there we go. That's how you get a nice, messy kind of crosshatch. You pick a direction, and once you decide it's to the point where it's going to get sloppy, that's why I did all this up in here with the really thick lines, because it doesn't really matter. You just want some white showing through so it looks like it grades. Another thing that's important with inking that pencilers really pay attention to is if you're going to make a turn from one angle to another angle, they like sharp corners. A nice, sharp, abrupt sort of transition a lot of times, depending upon which guy you're inking. There's some guys where you got to be a lot more subtle. And then there's some guys where you push the line weights just because it's going to look better like that. I do recommend, by the way, for anybody that is interested, I had some of this stuff printed up on regular cardstock. I do prefer that Eon board. I'll tell you what, if anytime Eon wants to sponsor me, I will use absolutely nothing but Eon boards from there on out. I will go ahead and endorse them right now and tell you that aside from the first batch, like when I got to the studio in '94, they had this batch of paper at Wildstorm. I don't know if it was at all the image studios or not, but it was absolutely outstanding. It went downhill after that. The next batch wasn't quite as good, and we never quite saw that kind of quality again. The Eon boards remind me of that stuff. Hands down, some of the best paper that I've ever worked on. Just a pleasure. It's pretty rare that you run into like paper that makes it more pleasant to draw just by the paper that you're drawing on. I don't, people are like, oh, you're getting paid. You're just kissing their ass. I'm like, no, I'm serious. This, just like the kind of pencil that you use can make a difference. You'll, the paper, the pen, the ink, everything all makes a difference. Especially as an inker, you find that out. How well the seal works on your ink bottle makes a difference. The climate where you live, if it's too humid, it can affect the paper, and that makes a difference. It all makes a difference. So, for anybody that's on the fence going, geez, that Eon board, is that shit really worth it? I'm here to tell you, somebody that's worked on some really good paper. That's good paper, man. That is what they call an unsolicited testimonial. The guy that does Eon, I think his name's Brett. And if you hear this, Brett, you're welcome. And your paper's awesome. So, happy to share it when I find supplies that are really good. Because so many suck these days. This is why you need your sleeky pen. At some point, you're going to have to do beard stubble, like I'm doing. And you're going to want something that gives you the tiniest line that you can possibly get. And since it's something like a stubbly texture like this, you really don't want a whole lot of line weight variation either. So having a pen that has a fixed point like this, you're better off anyway. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That's mask. Don't do stubble on the mask. There we go. We're going to fix it. No worries. I'm a professional. I've done this before. I promise. All right. Only a couple things left, and we're going to wrap it up here because this sucker's just about complete. Sorry if my head's like square in the middle of your screen right now. You really don't want to miss and have to fix it. And my eyesight's not as good as it was. My apologies. All right. We got the slicky pen here. again. Because just like the beard stubble, we need the arm hair to stay all one width. And it's okay if it looks hairy and scratchy and the lines look weird because it's hair and it's supposed to grow all sorts of random directions around your arm. I mean, it does take on a pattern, and you have to keep that in mind. Having it go around the arm. But after that, you have to focus on it way too much. You don't want it structured. Like, you see how I've got like kind of loose, wild lines here in comparison to more structured, evenly spaced lines up on his shoulder. Mm. See, this type of thing you don't miss. I'm not gonna mess with the curve. There we go. And that's just about it. Okay. Kind of a funky sort of signature, but I wanted to put it with his. Make sure it's clearly marked. Nobody thinks I'm trying to counterfeit any art or anything. Give you guys a look and see what this sucker looks like. Hey, thanks, Dan. Thanks for stopping in. Thanks to everybody that came in. I'll be posting this on my Instagram too. I'll probably clean it up a little bit. There's a couple spots where it's gotten into the claws and shit like that, but that's a couple minor touch ups. Hey, thanks, Rob. Now I'm gonna go finish up that cover. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I appreciate it, man. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.